Hello and hi. Fashion. Let's talk about it.
The history of fashion itself is extremely interesting, but way too involved to really dive into it. It was filled with so many complex changes and trends throughout the centuries. Fashion was always a lot more limited due to how long it would take to make specific garments. Most people would only have 3 to 4 rotating outfits, and practicality was more important than looking stylish. Then, the Industrial Revolution happened, and in came a new wave that slowly turned into fast fashion through the next century.
Unfortunately, a lot of people still are uneducated or ignorant of the fact that fast fashion is a huge issue and a huge problem. And even I had to learn a lot from it. I think at this point, it's only been about 4 or 5 years where, no, it has been more than that because it was right before COVID. COVID's 4 years already. That's insane. I have stopped spending money on clothes for the most part. A couple of years ago, I was able to start researching about fast fashion, and that could delve into the rabbit hole of discussion. But basically, to keep things short, it's terrible. I don't support it. And so I automatically will try to thrift my clothes as much as possible or make them.
I'm definitely not an expert on this topic, and there's tons of wonderful creators on this platform, as well as other platforms that do a lot better job of informing and educating compared to what I could do. But I understand that it's so important to make sure to bring it up as a disclaimer in a way, since we're talking about the idea of fashion as a whole.
Specifically, while I was a teenager, there was a lot of changes going on within pop culture and media. I think between the 80s to the 2000s, there was such a huge emphasis on tweenhood and girlhood in terms of girls must love fashion and girls must love clothes and be all cutesy and glamorous. And I definitely fell into that, but in a different way.
My fashion journey and style went through a lot of different phases like most people might. And to this day, I still love being able to express myself in multiple different ways and styles. There's times when I want to dress like an old Hollywood pinup model, and other times where I'm all gothed out.
Let me present. This is a letter that I wrote back when I think I was 15. And this is a letter that I wrote to Oprah and never sent. And let me explain why I wrote a letter to Oprah. When I was 15, I was really discovering one of my hyperfixations that is still a hyperfixation and passion of mine to this day, 20th century pop culture. And especially the fashion media of 20th century pop culture was so important to me, and I wish I could dress like they did back then.
Keep in mind that most suburban stores follow the same trend, so if you're looking for something more unique, it could be harder to find. I remember always loving the backpack purses when I was in high school, and it was a trend in the 90s, but when I was looking for one in the mall a decade later, I couldn't find any at all. Also, keep in mind that during this time, online shopping wasn't really a thing, so your access to clothes was only through stores at the mall. Thrift stores were around, but they were always hit or miss, so I ended up doing a lot of research on the internet just to get ideas of how people really used to dress. This was also before social media, so the research always was from random different history sites. Pinterest and Tumblr didn't exist then to make it easier to put ideas together.
I've learned with my life, especially when I was a younger kid, and to this day even, and I've mentioned it in the last video that I had where I wanted to share an idea of mine, a lot of my ideas are huge things to execute. And so I haven't been able to find the community to network it, or I've had this idea and now it wouldn't work the way that it might have worked back then. I had this idea that I wanted to be able to focus on putting together, and for whatever reason, my aunt's advice was always write a letter to Oprah, because at the time, Oprah, Ellen, and probably some other talk show hosts were making these people's dreams come true, even though now it seems very far-fetched, but that was the climate we had back then. And so for whatever reason, I wrote a letter to Oprah and I never sent it, and I haven't read it since the year that I wrote it. And I figured, what better time than to read it now? I am very neutral when it comes to Oprah today. I think a lot of people have mixed feelings about her, but at the time, please remember, this was the mid-2000s and she was at the peak. She was the woman that people thought could help them. I was a completely naive early teenager at that time. So I took the advice of my aunt, but then didn't do anything with it. And I don't know how cringy it is, but we're gonna find out. This is gonna lead into the idea that I have, and I'm gonna do on my own. This is a literal blast from the past. So here we go. Can you see the, yes, there we go. We can see the letter here. All right. I don't know if I'm gonna cringe at myself because this is so, okay. All right, I have to read. I haven't read this in a long time. Dear Oprah, I understand how far-fetched this is, but you could be the person to help make this dream come true. An introduction would be nice though. Let's see, I'm Erin. At the time that I'm writing it, I'm 16. Oh, I'm 16, okay, I'm not 15, I'm 16. I was off by the year. I've been lucky, nothing really bad has never happened to me. That's not the kind of help I need, oh God. If only my teenage self knew how much trauma I would endure from people, especially in relationships. So that's a whole other situation. That people have wronged me in the past, and therefore, innocent child. I've survived so far. That's not the type of help I need from you. I can say that I have ideas, I have dreams, way too many to count really. A lot of them are unrealistic, including this one I'm writing about. Which, again, that is still, you know, in a way, true. I definitely have a lot of ideas that I don't know how to execute them properly by myself. So, to this day, that's something I can agree with myself. If I could just make one dream come true, it would be this one. This dream is that important to me. Okay, again, I changed my mind now. I wouldn't care about this dream coming true. I have a lot more that I want to come true. I've been meaning to write you about this for a while, but it wasn't until I was over at my aunt's house when I really got inspired to write this. I was watching all of that on television when my aunt changed the channel to put on your show. I can't stop laughing at it because this is literally a time capsule in a letter. It was the episode when Dr. Oz and Randy Pausch were on. I don't know who this guy is. Dr. Oz, yes. But Randy Pausch, I don't know who this is.
So I'm reprising a talk that I gave in September at Carnegie Mellon University. There's an academic tradition called the last lecture. Hypothetically, if you knew you were going to die and you had one last lecture, what would you say to your students?
Thank you, YouTube, for helping me rediscover this random lecture that I probably forgot about a month after I wrote this letter, sadly. It's interesting to look back at this with no recollection on it. There's points of it that I can still relate to in a different way than how I probably thought of it when I first saw it.
Today's talk is not about death. It's about life and how to live, specifically about childhood dreams and about how you can try to achieve them. Next dream, Walt Disney Imagineering. When I was 8, my family took the pilgrimage to Disneyland in California.
While I was a teenager, I wasn't a big Disney fan. I got into it so much deeper when I was in college again. So it's a little ironic that some of the points he talks about relate to Disney, which is now a much bigger part of my personality compared to not paying attention to it years ago.
Because if you lead your life the right way, the karma will take care of itself. The dreams will come to you.
It still makes a lot of sense, and it's still inspirational, and honestly, a lot of what he talks about sounds like how people talk about manifestation today.
She turned it on right while Randy was at the beginning of his talk, I think. Anyways, at first I was mad that she changed it, but then I started to watch and listen and I really got inspired. Now I even want to paint my room. That's not what I was inspired by though. Don't worry, this is not a pointless letter. I'm glad I didn't send this because I'm literally rambling my thoughts before I even got to this idea. This is a literal journal entry in a letter. For the longest time, I've been fascinated with pop culture of the 90s. I know I was lucky to be alive during most part of the decade. I loved being a kid. Looking back, however, I still feel like I missed out. Again, I still can relate to this because even today, a lot of the content that I'm making is nostalgic and revisiting video games of the 90s because they're important things to preserve today. But it was something that was a really great decade. And of course, because it was my childhood, it is important to me. But now, the 90s aren't the only decade that I would care about in the past. Looking back, however, I still feel like I missed out. Looking back even more, I feel like I missed out by not being alive. Wait. Okay. Looking back even more, I feel like I missed out by not being alive. That's no one's fault. Okay, thank you, teenage me. As much as I like the millennium, which I spelled wrong, I can't spell millennium to this day. I always have to spell check it. As much as I like the millennium, I can't help but hate it. What was I thinking? Even more, I don't want to see the 20th century fade in the history books. I agree to that statement. Movies and music are easy to keep mainstream, but fashion is harder. Wow, okay, thank you, teenage me. This is literally how I feel about video games today. I don't have a date on this letter because the next thing is, I've been doing research since January on 20th century fashion, and I'm still far from knowing everything. I've always wanted to bring back the 90s pop culture, now that that's expanded to the whole century. This is probably like 2007, 2008. So little did I know that the 90s were gonna get revived in like 20 years, and here we are, and they've never gone away. I'm fascinated by it. Yes, I still am. I'm still fascinated by it, clearly. My dream is to be able to create a 20th century inspired pop culture fashion magazine. And this is the point of the video that we've got to, but there's still more letter to continue. I have an idea on what kind of layout I want. I know what I want in the magazine. I know I'm a little young, but I don't care. It's something I really want to do. It's important. So you may be asking, why am I asking for help when I know what I want? There are many reasons. Seriously, I have no connections. To this day, I still have no connections, which is sad now because I'm a lot older. I'm missing a spark. This must be important as well. Honestly, I have no clue how the magazine world works. To the back. We're almost done. I just read them. I mean, if anything counts, I watch Ugly Betty. Time capsule in the letter, okay? I don't need to mention how helpful you could be, seeing as you do have your own magazine. That was also probably why my aunt was like, write to Oprah. She has her own magazine. She could help this random kid with a letter that was poorly written. And you do know how the magazine world works. That is a fact. It's not fictional, whereas Ugly Betty is. Why did I write that? My plot, my mission is simple. I don't want to see this amazing century die. It's important to me to bring it back, but I can't do it alone. That's what I needed to say. I have a summary included in case for some crazy reason that you do want to read it. And that's the letter. That's literally this letter that I ended up keeping on to for 15 years. It's crazy. You know, that's a journey, and I definitely need to keep that letter for prosperity, so I have to show myself how much I've grown, because that letter, that writing is atrocious and unprofessional, but I was a kid still. Being 16, you don't know anything. Clearly, you don't know anything. But the idea still stands. I always had this idea for the longest time to do this type of decades magazine.
What's even funnier is I got to use this idea for one of my college projects. So I have a fully explained professional idea now. Decades is an explosion of the old and the new fusing together. It will mainly be an American fashion lifestyle, focusing on bringing the trends from the past into modern society. Each issue will showcase different outfit ideas inspired by every decade from the 20s to the 90s, and where to purchase them within the different stores and shopping websites. Each issue will also include editorials for each decade, song playlists, articles about significant television shows and films, and more. Nothing has been done like this magazine before, and it's important to highlight the history of our past. Today, a lot of legends are being forgotten, and it's important to remember the greats and understand all the hard work that they've accomplished. It'll be a monthly publication with special collector's edition once in a while that is completely dedicated to a specific decade in depth. There will also be holiday themes, such as February will be all about love and Valentine's, October will be Halloween, November will be about Thanksgiving, and December will be about all the festive holidays like Christmas and New Year's. Every issue will start in black and white up until the 1950s. Pictures will always be in color. Imagery in general will always follow a dreamlike aesthetic. Whenever a new period piece of cinema or television comes out, we will hold interviews with the cast from their projects. Examples of articles would be like The Rebirth of Electro Swing, Postmodern Jukebox, Dapper Day, Your Inside Scoop, Fitzgerald, A Goddess in the Making, Sock Hot Bites, and etc. Advertisements will focus on lifestyle products and events. If possible, we work with companies to help them cater to our look. Certain chain stores like Hot Topic and Express we will work with. online sites like pinupgirlclothing.com and uniquevintage.com. We would also work with bands, shows, and cons/special events.
This is when style also is a lot more simplistic, because now that we have the internet, and this is the other part of everything coming together, the internet and subculture fashion and aesthetics are so expansive now. Before, when I was growing up, you would have gothic culture, punk culture, preppy culture, which now preppy is a whole different word. And it's not the same as, you know, back when it was used for Hollister and Abercrombie and Laguna Beach.
Honestly, Degrassi might have had some of the most realistic fashion from the era. That would be interesting to revisit in the future.
Well, nerd culture was so different back then. Nerd culture was completely different than it is today. So much is. So much is the same, but so much is different at the same time. But now everything is a core. And there's a lot of things that I really do like. Like, some of these cores are really awesome, and I do appreciate how much is expanded, because cottagecore is such a beautiful style and a beautiful aesthetic, and I'm in awe for people that love it. Like, I really appreciate cottagecore fashion. I really also appreciate dark academia fashion. A lot of what my outfits for professional work have been very dark academia styled without even realizing it. So there's been such an expansive universe, and it's something that I definitely want to be able to explore through videos.
Thankfully, there's lots of websites that are wikis dedicated to the list of aesthetics and cores to make it easy to stay informed. And as you can see, there's a lot. Now, most of these aren't all fashion-based. For example, Vertical Arrow is only a design aesthetic compared to a fashion one, but there's so many interesting fashion choices people have created that I'm excited to explore.
I still love the world of fashion as an art form. I still love how people can make these amazing outfits and styles together, and I think that's really important to highlight. But of course, knowing how bad fast fashion is, it's very important to be sustainable. And so that's something that I like, taking a look at fashion and the time periods on this type of level. Because if we're doing it as an episode or a video series, it's a lot easier to make it sustainable, because you can focus on the type of fashion it is instead of a specific piece of clothing that a store is going to sell, and it may not be made well. Thrifting is so important. Going through your own closet to already find things that you have is so important. And I think that there is a lot of ways that you can have your own style, or even match a style that you admire and adore in a very sustainable, smart way. And so I want to be able to do that. And so taking this letter that I wrote and this dream that I had, that I still held on to very deeply, it's something that I do still think about a lot from time to time. The idea still holds really strongly, because I think it's a really smart idea. I think it's a really fun one. But now that the internet has become the way it is, it's a lot easier to break it down into more of a series. So I'm excited to be able to finally do something that I've had this idea of for a very long time now. So this is our introduction to another area of video content that I'm excited to make very soon. And you can look forward to that, and stay tuned and subscribe. It is something that you're interested in. Honestly, I'm glad that I never sent that to Oprah, because that would not have gone anywhere. And if I sent it out and I would never have it, I'm happy that I kept it to look back at, because it literally is a time capsule in a letter, and it's so important to have for my past teenage self. The ideas were there, but knowing how to do it professionally and market myself was not there. But now, you know, we're older, we've learned a lot, and we can actually execute things now. I know it's cliche that a lot of people are using this time to heal their inner child and heal their inner teenager, but literally this is perfect. This is what I'm able to do. And so I'm grateful for that I can use this to heal my inner teenager and also be able to look at some cool new fashion trends in a way, but also be able to go back and dress the way that I always wanted to. But until then, thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next one.